So today we are honored to have 5 specialists, 5 professionals who will speak about design for a lifetime. And this program came about because of the age-friendly New York City initiative, spearheaded by the mayor, the New York City Council, and the New York Academy of Medicine. And the actual putting together of this panel, or I should say the spark, was Jerry Maltz of the American Institute for Architects. Jerry, would you raise your hand there? Okay. All right, so Jerry got this thing going, and he got in touch with Gail, I believe, who you'll meet, and she really played a pivotal role in getting this program off the ground. Now, perhaps you have friends, relatives, neighbors, people you work with who will be interested in this information. We are videotaping this event, so you will be able to pass it on to them, to let them know about it too. Now, if you want to know where to find information about programs like this, and also where we will be linking the videotape of this event, you can go to Next Chapter Library. Next Chapter Library. So we have a blog channel, Next Chapter, and we also have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter feed, and if you Google Next Chapter Library, Next Chapter NYPL, you will be able to find this information and other information about programs like this. If Googling, Facebook, Twitter blogs is all a mystery to you, we have a lot of computer classes in the library, free. We welcome you to those also. I would like to acknowledge our captionist, sitting over to your left, Lauren Schechter of Total Caption. And she is writing down every word, so you can keep an eye on that as well as on the speakers and the slides. And now I'd like to introduce you to the panel. I'll just give you the names of the panelists, and then our moderator will give additional information about each person. Our moderator is Lorraine G. Hiatt, Ph.D., environmental gerontologist. And we have Gail Ressler, interior designer, Joelle Lichtman, interior designer, Manny Ferris, lighting specialist, and Phyllis Sperling, architect. Isn't it an amazing group of talent? So a round of applause for everyone. And now I'll turn it over to Lorraine Hiatt.
I thought I would start by reviewing what we hope to accomplish in our now hour and a half together. And I just readjusted the times, so we'll have you out of here by 7:30 with questions. I'll list the topics that each of our speakers are going to be speaking and somewhat overlapping on. And then I will introduce them with a couple of words about them. Because we're relaxed, they'll say a little bit more as they tell you their story with their slides. We're going to be holding our questions unless we've really messed something up, in which go ahead and let us know we're not loud enough, we're not clear enough. We said Chicago rather than New York. You can correct us of those types of sins. We also will be having questions and responses when we are done today. And we say responses rather than answers because you'll hear several of us say this. We're offering you some nuggets, some insights, some ways to get started. This is a journey that involves your preferences or that of a family member, your expertise, and a series of considerations. We'll be naming a number of those, but you can't go home from tonight and hope to be renovated tomorrow morning. Is that understood, kids? Is that a promise on your part? So I am an environmental gerontologist. I work all over the United States. I'm 66, maybe then the eldest on the panel, not sure, not taking a poll of that. 44 years of research and consultation. I've completed work on 1,000 elder care projects, and I only know that because I had to finish a resume for something. So I said we were going to be gathering ideas and working with others, and I suggest you use tonight to identify a buddy here or a mentor or someone that you will be working with as you try to apply this information in your own environment. With the numbers of aging folks we've now reached the point where on the street corners of New York, there are more people 65 and over than will pass that are 65 and under, and that proportion will be doubling within 13 years. I'm not going to give you a lot of statistics. I know Joelle is giving you one or two because we think you're here to celebrate some examples. I do suggest you use your computer and do some web searches on some of the terms you hear today. If you like this presentation, it's being videoed. We'll have it available in a PDF, and Bridget will make clear to us at the end where we can make that available to you. If all else fails, we've got all of our email addresses here, and each of us are going home on our new memory stick with a copy of it. So if you know one of us personally, don't be strangers to us. We don't want to be strangers to you. I was intrigued in getting ready. The first example I found out in popular literature that referred just to urban aging in New York was from 1998, which said, for some, decorating begins at age 80, and is included in the top left, and was a marvelous example of some folks that said, now I'm going to learn to do it, and I'm learning to do it at home. So we think that we're here for a new idea, but it's been around if we can scratch the surface and find some examples. We also have a colleague, Rosemary Backer, who was going to try to be here today. Family difficulties made it possible, who's written a wonderful guide with AARP available through the AARP website called Revitalizing Your Home. I believe you can download that, and I will tell you much of what you'll find is relevant to houses and suburbanites. But if you look in terms of rooms and cubbies and objects and windows and the things that are common to many of us, you'll see a lot of good examples. That's why all of these presenters today are interesting. I think maybe there'll be some kind of an urban volume that comes out of this. I was asked to give you an overview, and I'm the cautionary one tonight, a role I never play. And I'm going to suggest in my cautions that you will be hearing about lists and seeing options. Use that carefully in one side of your brain. I polled my colleagues, Gail and I had this conversation way into the night one point, at how many people we knew that were in the fields of design and aging who were 100% successful with their own families. And you should have heard the oohs and the ughs and the ouches in terms of those of us who could use factual information and necessarily immediately put it to work in the families, our sisters, brothers, parents, in-laws. One of the things we find is we've got to use the tools of the field of environmental gerontology, which have to do with starting from the person. We can walk in with the list. I'd be glad to share with you the lists that I have. I'm going to put one page of one up here today. But the important thing is that list is for somebody. What's really important is what the user is looking for, where she spends her time, what she is doing. One of the worries that we have is a lot of developers are assuming once we apply universal design or Americans with Disability, we've met the needs of aging. ADA was prepared, the research for it at University of Georgia, Georgia Tech. There were 2 people who were elderly, that meant age 65, involved in the research. They both drove to the site in their own cars, and that, I think, made us sort of torque that set of guidelines to notions and stereotypes of elders, not what people do. There are a lot of apartments being used by folks who would like not to be in a wheelchair, and in fact, I'm going to make the point tonight that creating mobility is one of the best things that an apartment can do. So, along that era, I would suggest, we won't be doing this overall tonight, but I would suggest you look in your households, families, homes, clients, with what people can do, what we're bringing to living. We will be talking about lighting tonight. I'd like us to base our research on that of a number of resources. Glad to give you a whole long list of those if you'd like. But the research is suggesting that vision changes such that not only do we need more light, but we benefit from contrast. That could be true whether you're playing the piano or aiming for the toilet. And if you don't like cleanup, it begins to suggest how vision is relevant in living fairly independently. If you want to see it and use it, it needs to contrast. Contrast means light against dark. It's like the wonderful red top in the second row next to Jerry's lighter colored shirt. Light against dark, bright against dull is the key to visibility, although tomato red, I'm so glad you wore that jacket today, is probably the most visible color. In terms of audition, hearing, and understanding, the theme there is background noise. We're going to be hearing more at the end about some new technology to benefit hearing and understanding. Most audition is tested in laboratories. People need to be able to communicate. That's true in the lobbies of our public library where we're getting directions to the South Hall, for example. In terms of movement, and here I'm going to suggest that we use our own bodies. We're going to create in our bodies a posture of mobility or immobility. And we're going to do this because you're going to be hearing later about clutter and space. And we've all trained ourselves to think about this in terms of wheeling a wheelchair. I'm going to suggest this has something to do with moving and not needing the wheelchair. So I don't know what you think, but that side of the room looks a little stressed. Do you think they look a little stressed over here on this side? If you're stressed and agitated, you bring that into your body posture. Think parents and grandparents. Maybe yours were bent over in the shoulder. Think injuries and think exercise. How many of you know what the midriff is? Honest, honest, honest. How many of you know what the midriff is? Okay, it's one of the most important parts of the body in terms of dealing with exercise, but in dealing with balance. And it's the middle. It's from the boob line to the knee line. And what that has to do with strengthening and balance to stand up. And much of the home, you're going to see a whole series of examples, encourage us to have monkey posture, Apian way, if you will. And that isn't helping us, but we're going to experience that now so that when you're designing, selecting chairs, objects, seating, backup, steps, entry, beds, you have movement in your mind. So, let your head move a little forward. This is because all our life we haven't built on that good posture. Let your shoulders move forward, especially if you work on a computer, drive a car fast. Exactly. If you're even over a kitchen appliance doing work. All right, now let your feet separate about 18 inches or hip width apart, toes in, knees in, heels out. This gives you a sensation of what happens to hips. They get away from you. They go their own way. And as a result, the keister, I have to give a good view of this, the keister is going to hang out no matter what your ethnic word for it. It's going to come after and it's going to get there before. And it makes sitting, as you'll see in a minute, a whole lot more difficult, especially if you're in a situation with pull-down seats, which we will be as we do this. Okay, take a couple of steps. Find someone behind you, next to you, in this posture. And shake the hands of somebody you haven't met before. Go ahead. Take a movement in the posture. All right, come back to your seat. Now, if we have not such cramped room, you begin to see that we move a little more different. We need those aisleways. We filled the floor up with clutter, and then we're worried about how much space and size it takes. All right, now I'm going to ask you to figure out, imagine a shower or a step or a curve. You're going to be seeing a lot of those in the picture. Get that posture back. If you are a little unstable, get ready to cheat your hands as you are. Get ready to use something secure in front of you, which is part of the lesson. And now imagine what it's like to stand curb, or up over the bathtub, or up to the bed, or now sit up on the bed backwards with that part of you that's going forwards and lift your feet up. We're asking people to do a lot. The devices that we know of don't help. And then around our house, we have a lot of wheeled stuff that goes sliding away from us, bedside tables, snack trays in our power position. Okay, now you can sit for the whole rest of the evening, but before you sit, get your center of gravity forward and figure out how you're going to sit, keeping your arms forward. We don't pull our arms back as well because of rotator cuff not being as strong as it was. Figure out how you'll sit down. And it's slower, and the kind of chairs and seats, and Jerry's right, some people will be left standing. So what we're suggesting is chairs, the style of the chair, the armrest. They're things that are advertised, like our example on the right, the pop-up chair, if you will, all the time. But in fact, if you try this with this posture, those chairs are associated with a lot of falls. Even if that fancy big old wingback chair doesn't do that, some of those oversized chairs are really difficult to get in and out of. That produces more sedentary behavior. That keeps people from leaving the home and going out. And so why is this topic important? Because it keeps you moving and vital and part of the community rather than away from community. So, in summary, are we designing for living in one place? Is that what aging in place or designing from a lifetime means? I'm not sure. You may hear many points of view amongst your friends and your families. As a lifelong researcher in aging, the one piece I can't find in the field great examples of are urban environments that are satisfactory for people who have difficulty reliably making their needs known, following through on activities of daily living, appointments, medications, just remembering what one promised to do, self-care, exiting under their own power from a signal or an instruction, and truly living well. I'm not convinced tonight, at tonight's session, will resolve the issues of cognitively impaired. And when I was feeling bad about that, I started feeling an awful lot better because Jane Brody, one of our New York Times authors who writes a column on wellness, I put a link to it here, started a column in April about a family member who is cognitively impaired and ended up talking about exactly what the speakers are talking about tonight, physical issues. She didn't fully resolve how we deal with folks who have problems of memory, wandering, mobility. And this is why I'm suggesting that the issue of design is more than a one-person journey. So, you're going to be hearing from all of our speakers. It doesn't really matter where you start or launch your plans. Maybe you're going to identify the natural amenities, I'll call them natural resources of the house or the room or the person. Maybe you're going to start looking at the clutter status. Maybe you're going to start by looking at equipment and furnishing. Maybe you're going to look at what you're seeing in the slides and ask yourself, what's missing? Maybe you're going to ask yourself, what can be changed? All right, I can't shift the toilet. How can I make the bathroom experience more dignified for the individual? Analyzing space. Maybe that isn't your forte, but maybe you'll meet a friend or a colleague or realize helping to understand how that space work is valuable for you. At the end of the day, we're trying to produce not a home, but a place that you are in, that you are being, doing. It's not that we're designing for the aged. We're designing for the living and for the leaving to the place and the right place.